And welcome to another episode of Hazardous Verbal Waste. I am your host, Shira Chan. Today is Saturday, January 4th, 2020. New year, new episode. Can't wait to get started. Without further ado, let's get right down to it, shall we? In Yu-Gi-Oh! News. Well, there's actually not a whole lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! News this week, per se. I did want to let you guys know that I am currently planning on either judging the next regional qualifier in Seattle, which will be on, I believe, April 4th, or what I might do is instead of playing in the tournament or judging the tournament, I'm currently working on a plan that will allow me to report on the tournament. I have some more information to gather before I approach the tournament organizer. His name is Wei. He's a really cool dude. I'm going to approach him with this particular, I do apologize, this particular plan. And if he approves it, the plan is to set up table 1 as the feature match table. And I will have my video camera set up and I will have everything set up ready to go so that I can record each match. And then as I record each match, I'm also going to comment on it. Or I might do the commentary later in post-production. But then I'm also going to get interviews for at least audio interviews. Maybe video interviews, I'm not sure. But at least audio interviews with the winners of each match that occurs at table 1. That way, you guys, the listeners, get some insight into what goes through the minds of some of the top players of the game. That's pretty much all I have for Yu-Gi-Oh! News this week. On to the next segment. In Pokemon news, how Canada's military reacted to seeing Pokemon Go players trespassing on its bases. Just before midnight on July 10th, 2016, Master Corporal Daniel Boyd of the Canadian Military Police spotted something suspicious. He was on duty at Canadian Forces Base North Bay, about 350 kilometers north of Toronto. In the darkness, 2 men in a van driving near the edge of the base made a U-turn and headed deeper into the military facility. Boyd followed. The van stopped. Inside, the men were looking at their smartphones. Boyd walked up to the driver's window. It turned out they were playing Pokemon Go, and their pursuit of Pikachu led them onto the Air Force Base. Documents obtained by CBC News show the curiosity and confusion shared by Canadian military officials after the 2016 launch of Pokemon Go, which was sending civilians onto Department of Defense property searching for mythical digital creatures. Pokemon Go was a popular mobile app that launched in Canada on July 17, 2016, but it was launched July 7th in the United States and was downloadable globally by users who knew how to fool their phone into thinking it was in the US. The app encouraged users to explore their communities, viewing the world through their phone's screen. Virtual creatures and items appeared in real-life locations. Some locations were military bases. Within days of the app's launch, the Canadian Armed Forces had to issue a public warning: Pokemon Go users should keep off of military property. CBC News filed an access to information request after the warning was issued. Now, nearly 3.5 years later, the Department of National Defense has disclosed 471 pages of internal files on the subject. Most of the emails expressed curiosity and confusion about the new game. Please advise the commissionaries that apparently Fort Frontenac is both a Pokegym and a Pokestop. I will be completely honest in that I have no idea what that is. End quote. Wrote Major Jeff Monahan at CFB Kingston. Another quote, the game's premise seems to be going to the Pokestops gyms to collect Pokemons. We should almost hire a 12-year-old to help us out with this, of which we were able to find 5 of these things on the range road itself, wrote security expert David Levanek at CFB Borden, Ontario, 100 kilometers northwest of Toronto. Another quote, "There's a game out there taking off like gangbusters, and it requires people to move to digitally cached locations to get points, etc., wrote Lieutenant Colonel Richard Raymond at CFB Pentawawa, west of Ottawa. 8 days after Pokemon Go launched, the military police in Canada issued a criminal intelligence advisory. The notice was sent to all military police officers. It said, "It has been discovered that several locations within D&D CAF establishments are host to game landmarks, Pokestops, and gyms, and its mythical digital creatures, Pokemon." In the weeks after the app's launch, military police across the country suddenly saw a spike in suspicious activity. One lady at the Worthington Tank Park was playing the game whilst the 3 children with her were climbing all over the tanks, wrote Levanek at CFB Borden. At CFB Greenwood in Nova Scotia, documents show a report of a vehicle acting suspiciously in the Canucks store parking lot. When police investigated, they found the occupants were playing the game. When a man was stopped on CFB Borden, documents show he was playing Pokemon Go and told officers, "I have to beat my kids." At least 3 military police officers at CFB Comox in British Columbia, CFB Pentawawa, and CFB Kingston were assigned an unusual task: wander around their bases, smartphones and notepads in hand, searching for virtual Pokemon infrastructure. Now, the documents show a wide variety of responses to the discovery of Pokestops and gyms on military bases. At CFB Pentawawa, one location where Pokemon Go players retrieve virtual items was at the Garrison Museum. Quote, "Maybe some extra people will visit the museum," wrote Major Alicia Saucier. Officials at CFB North Bay were less enthusiastic. On July 21st, 2016, they filed a complaint with Niantic, the developer of Pokemon Go. With the implementation of this Pokestop, there will be an increase in traffic onto the base, which could have a negative impact on 22 Wings' mission, the request said. Niantic responded that it would review the complaint and follow up. Meanwhile, at CFB Halifax, officials tried to harness the game for their benefit. An email to Rear Admiral John Newton made a series of recommendations. 1. Remove the Pokestop from the Dockyard Gym because it presents a security risk. 2. Add a Pokestop at the Stadacona Gym because, quote, "This addition with the already existing Pokestops at the museum and the Admiral's residence would increase the museum's attendance." And 3. If possible, upgrade the museum Pokestop to a Pokemon gym to increase traffic. Now, Rear Admiral Newton addressed the Pokemon generally in an email, writing, "Life and work are best accomplished if there is good fun, health, and friendship. If Pokemon Go enables these values while we protect our interests, then we all stand to marvel at this intersection of technology, gaming, and health." Now, it took more than 3 years for the Department of National Defense in Canada to provide the documents requested by CBC News. According to legislation, the normal response time should be up to 60 days. Quote, "While our goal is to provide responses to access to information requests as efficiently as possible, the review process is challenged by the size and complexity of the organization, as well as the number of requests received every year," said a statement from Jessica Lemarand. I do apologize, I'm butchering these names, a senior communications advisor with D&D. Another quote, "Recognizing that backlog files require more attention, D&D recently created a new team in the Access to Information and Privacy Directorate as part of a backlog reduction initiative. This team has been assigned the task of working solely on backlog files so that the other processing teams can concentrate on ensuring newer files do not go late," she said. In other words, the orders given to government staff hired to identify overdue information requests seem to be, as Pokemon says, you gotta catch 'em all. That's pretty much all I have for Pokemon news this week. On to the next segment. In Magic the Gathering news, more Magic Legends details emerge. 3-person parties, 5 classes, random spells. There hasn't been too much revealed about Magic Legends since its formal announcement at the Game Awards earlier last month, unless you're willing to dive deep into all the various social media channels at your disposal. Fortunately, Force Gaming has done that work for us and presented a YouTube video last week to summarize all of that semi-hidden knowledge. As you might recall, you'll be playing as a planeswalker in an action RPG. Now we know that you'll have 5 classes to choose from, likely related to the 5 colors of spells, with the ability to switch between them as needed. You'll also explore the various planes themselves, choosing the order in which you traverse them, which brings up the notion of an MMORPG with flexible level requirements for each zone. You'll play alone or with a party of up to 3, collecting and upgrading spells as you go. Regarding the most basic mechanics of Magic the Gathering, cards and spells, the video has this to say, possibly a direct quote from Cryptic Studios. Quote, "We will be strategically choosing the spells in our hand because they are drawn as random as you fight." End quote. Now, there's still a lot of info yet to come out, not the least of which is how monetization will work. Not only the question of how Perfect World will operate its cash shop, but the inherent nature of Magic the Gathering and other CCGs, which the video narrator loves but describes as the literal definition of a pay-to-win game. Now, let's hope it doesn't squeeze the coin purse too tightly. I will make sure to try and get the link to the YouTube video into the show notes. That's pretty much all we have for Magic the Gathering news this week. On to the next segment. In gaming news, is EA releasing a new Star Wars game in 2020? With Star Wars Battlefront 2 now considered a good game and the critical and commercial success of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, EA is riding into 2020 with some much-needed confidence. EA didn't do much in the first 5 years of having exclusive rights to make Star Wars games, but it seems the publisher has finally figured it out. With the help of Respawn Entertainment, they realize that single-player, narrative-focused adventures have just as much sales potential as multiplayer games. And thanks to some brutally honest and critical fan feedback, they've learned that sometimes it's more important and lucrative to have just a good, fair multiplayer game instead of just shoehorning in microtransactions to feed your bottom line. At this point, EA now has 2 solid titles under its belt. After a rough launch, Battlefront 2 is now deemed a respectable shooter. Jedi Fallen Order has been a pleasant surprise and a much-needed savior for EA, restoring hope for fans who once referred to the publisher as the dark side. With renewed confidence in EA's ability to deliver a good Star Wars game, we prepare to turn the calendar page with the wonder of what 2020 will bring us. Will we get a new Star Wars game next year? The answer might disappoint you. EA hasn't made any specific announcements regarding the subject recently, but during the company's earnings call back in October, they were asked about the future of the IP. EA's chief financial officer, Blake Jorgensen, did confirm that a new Star Wars game is on the way, but added that it probably wouldn't be here for a while. EA's financial year 2022 runs from April 2021 through March 2022. EA hasn't really dropped any hints as to what is in the pipeline for Star Wars, but the publisher did cancel both EA Vancouver's open world game and Visceral's game, led by Amy Hennig. Now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 director Dennis Branval also told PC Gamers and back in September that they have no plans to develop a new Battlefront title anytime soon. Given how long Battlefront 2 has been supported post-launch, I think they can let that franchise rest for a bit. So with a longer wait likely in the cards, let us know what Star Wars game you would like to see from EA in the future, either through the comments, emails, or leave me a voice message. Also in gaming news, PS5 and Xbox Series X leaks hint at powerful and expensive consoles. That there are new consoles coming is hardly a secret, especially with Microsoft's big reveal of the Xbox Series X. Now, much of the details about these consoles, however, are still shrouded in mystery. Now, thanks to a series of leaks over the internet and sleuthing by gaming sites, some of those details pertaining to the graphics capabilities of both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X consoles. Now, while they do paint an impressive picture, they might also suggest price points that are above the average that gamers are used to paying. Just as impressive as the leaked specs is the detective work that went into gathering them. Someone at AMD apparently stored benchmark data on GitHub, which, while not public, found its way leaking to the internet. Several sites and sources pieced the puzzle together, and Eurogamer collected the information to give a more comprehensive overview of what to expect next year, as far as the leaks go at least. Now, both consoles will, of course, bear AMD Zen 2 processors and Ryzen GPUs, but their exact configurations will also be different. The PS5, for example, might possibly have a GPU with 36 custom Navi units running at 2 GHz, which is being billed as a light version of AMD's Navi 10 GPU architecture for PCs. Together with the jump to GDDR6 RAM, possibly with a 16 gig configuration, the PS5 looks like a significant upgrade compared to even the PS4 Pro. Slightly more interesting but also less certain are the figures for the Xbox Series X, which may have 56 Navi compute units running at 1.7 GHz. With a promised faster GDDR6 memory, the upcoming Xbox may very well make good Microsoft's promise of a next-gen console that pushes the boundaries of the Xbox line. Now, that may also push the boundaries of pricing, though the PS5 stands a higher chance of being closer to the average price, if not a little bit higher. Then again, Microsoft did hint that the Series X will be a high-end console and that there may be more Xbox consoles coming, perhaps ones with lower price points but also less powerful hardware. That's pretty much all we have for gaming news this week, and all the news we have for this week in general. On to the final thoughts. Before we get to the final thoughts, here's a quick message from a few other shows you might find entertaining.
Hey, I'm Chen.
And I'm James.
We're from A Bloody Mess Podcast, the badly researched true crime podcast.
We straddle the boundaries between documentary and comedy, and our aim is to leave you laughing and thinking, wow, I didn't know that.
So once you're done with this podcast, add us to your download lists and give us a go. Have a nice day.
Bye.
There's been a murder of podcast.
Hello! Do you listen to podcasts? Did you seriously just give me that look? I knew you listened to podcasts, but do you listen to the Bare Naked Ladies? Wait, don't hit fast forward. Yes, there's a band out there called Bare Naked Ladies. They are quirky, fun, comedic, and excellent musicians. If you love alternative 90s music with a little jazz, rap, and country mixed in at different times, then you've got to try this band out. And we will lead you through a journey of getting to love this band. We have 3 or 4 people with different levels of bare naked experience. We have Aaron, who's our music expert that breaks down each song. We will try to be informative, but also, we're all friends, so we like to have as much fun as possible. If you are a moderate fan of BNL, then you'll find new experiences and information. If you're a BNL fanatic like me, then I bet you too will find a song that is a deep dive that you never knew of. We sometimes have guests after the first letter. Oh, did I not mention that? We are Bare Naked ABCs, and the ABCs represents that we discuss the songs alphabetically. So come try us out on all platforms where podcasts are downloaded. Bare Naked ABCs. And no, we are not nude during the recordings.
Bare naked.
Bare naked. Bare naked.
ABCs.
Hello, future listeners. We are Historical AF. I'm Ashley.
I'm Keena.
And I'm Natalie.
We are 2 librarians and a historian bringing the funny, weird, spooky, and morbid historical nuggets you never knew you needed in your ear holes every Sunday.
And once a month, we bring you extra AF episodes full of your stories and history in the news.
And we do this while hitting the giggle water and gracing the world with our foul mouths and wit.
So if you love to laugh and you like history, true crime, and the paranormal, then we are the podcast for you, and your girls can't wait for you to join us.
You can find us on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. For a full list of ways to listen, go to historicalafpodcast.wordpress.com. And while you're there, you can check out the photos that accompany each episode.
Yeah, bye. We'll see you soon. I don't know. That'll probably scare him away.
Yeah.
Probably.
Come to us.
Come to the dark side. We have vodka.
And
Yeah.
cookies.
Hell yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Well, here we are at the end of yet another episode of Hazardous Verbal Waste. I hope you've been informed as well as entertained. If you have any questions or comments or concerns regarding this week's episode, there are several ways that you can contact the show. You can email me directly. The email is hazardousverbal@gmail.com. You can go to the website hazardousverbal.com. Go to the Contact Us page, and on there you will find the links to the social media accounts. You can also find a Contact Us form. Fill that out with any of your questions or concerns, and we'll get that message. You can also send us a voice message through Skype. The Skype ID is Ichimoto1. If you send us a voice message, I'll make sure to play your message on a future episode of Hazardous Verbal Waste. Well, like I said, this is the end of the episode. We did cover quite a bit of news this week. There wasn't a whole lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! News this week, so didn't really have much to say in that regard. But I am trying to maintain each segment regardless of how much actual news there is for each segment this year, so we'll see how that goes. I will try and give you guys a good update on how my plan to do that coverage of the regional qualifier in April goes. I am also working on a new project. I just started interviews for cast for a web series I'm going to be putting together, which is going to kind of combine the concepts of both The Guild by Felicia Day and the Gamers series of movies, The Gamers Darkness Rising, and The Gamers Hands of Fate, produced by Dead Gentleman Productions. So I don't know how well that's going to work out. We'll just have to see, and I'm hoping to get a cast together soon. I also am working on taking some voiceover classes with my wife up at Washington State University, Seattle campus. And that sounds like a whole lot of fun. And who knows, I might end up doing a voice in a video game or anime series or cartoon series that you might actually get to watch. So here's hoping. Cross your fingers. Pray to God. Again, that's pretty much all I have for this week. So until next time, this is Shiro-chan signing off. Peace.